Hello, and welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast, where we dive into all things software automation. I'm your host, Nandan Mullakra. While I'm not podcasting, I write articles on nandan.info. I hope you enjoy the show. Let's get right into it. Today we have Antti from Robocorp. Robocorp is one of the most funded open source RPA in the market. This is a Q&A session we recorded as part of a demo that included questions from the audience. The link to that complete video is in the show notes if you like to see that. I got started with the Q&A part of the session by asking Antti why people should go in for open source RPA while there are very good commercial RPA options available.
Yeah, good question. I think so many reasons, but I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that RPA is a developer domain. So we haven't really seen the citizen developer approach taking off. Instead, what we see, we have dedicated RPA developers who work with these tools day in, day out. And what usually works with developers is actually open ecosystems, things that are open for sharing and collaboration. So a developer will expect to have something where they can actually build on top of other people's learning and knowledge instead of working in a closed off environment. So I think that's one big motivation for many people to look into open source RPA. And up until now, there hasn't been really any solution out there on the open source side that would have the sort of level of polish and finish available. So I think in the coming years we're gonna see a lot of rise on that side. Then there's obviously things like the business model, how it's different or can be different from the open source side. So we want to drive the price of an individual robot down to zero. That's essentially what we're doing, and I think pricing per robot is a horrible idea to begin with. I get where it's coming from, so you can kind of understand that RPA, you can say that it saves work. You can calculate that you save so many FTEs, and you can put a price tag on it. That's pretty straightforward, but that kind of limits your view and perspective on RPA. So that limits the use of RPA to only cases that will save a certain number of FTEs. And I think there's so much more use to RPA than just that. So there's a ton of reason why not to break the business model in RPA, and also break the collaboration model, and also take a sort of a open focus on the developers, the people who are actually building this stuff.
Okay, yeah, perfect. It opens many possibilities with $0 bots, right? Because you're no more restricted to the old ROI calculations. You basically
Exactly.
start with the value. Great, amazing. So and the next question, Shine Paramal asks, what are your challenges against the top three? I think I asked that, but this is one favorite question of people on all the sessions. They want to compare it with the top three. What's your take on that? And I know you're not a low code platform, but other than that, how do you compare yourself with, say, UiPath or Automation Anywhere?
Yeah, well, I don't like to compare ourselves to them, to be honest.
Okay.
It's about not just being better but different, and different in meaningful ways. So I know that people are making that comparison for sure, but I've seen so many companies where they will adopt Robocorp suite as a secondary offering for UiPath, for instance. So it's usually not UiPath or Robocorp. Is they're using both, and obviously in some cases they might be replacing their proprietary bots with our ones, but I've seen so many cases where they coexist as well. So I'm really not that worried about the big three, or big four, if you think that Microsoft is going to be that one. It's the market is huge, and we're actually making it even bigger, kind of by relaxing some of the ROI calculation restrictions. So we think that RPA is going to come down market to mid-cap companies and even smaller companies, and we get a ton of questions and reach out from people who have smaller RPA consulting companies, and they think that they can serve the market in their local area with automating business processes for companies, and they just need to have the right tools to do that. So I think that we are the perfect company to enable that kind of new business to emerge.
Great. And I like that, you come from the pie is not small, it's big enough for everyone. Yesterday, I shared something on Appian. The CEO basically is saying that it's time to think beyond your own tools and, incorporate humans, all kinds of technologies in a workflow to orchestrate the automation. So great. I think that's the way to go. So next we have a question from Sirisha. She's asking, how do you rate this product in the current market landscape? It's a similar question, but what are its strengths with respect to them?
Yeah, I think our core strength is that we actually really understand developers and are openly developer focused, and we want to create an open ecosystem for developers to build RPA. That's really one of the we are really product focused and developer focused company. Not to say that we don't want to serve business users. Obviously we do. The use cases are coming from the business side of things, but in the end, the developers are the people who work with these things every day, and we actually want to create something that they will like to use and they will enjoy to use. So that's I think one of the core strengths of Robocorp.
Okay, great. So the next question Desmond Lowe asks is this a no-code automation? And you said that it is basically use robot framework and it's not no-code or probably not even low-code. So go ahead.
This is I would say that this is code automation. So you had a question about just briefly commenting that we kind of don't shy away from code, and I think RoboFramework strikes a nice balance between going all the way to Python and going to something more high level. It has a low barrier to entry, the way RoboFramework syntax works, and the way that we can get people easily into the ecosystem. But then it has a high ceiling to grow, so you're not restricted or tied from your hands. In a sense, you have the power of expression to actually do pretty complex stuff as well.
Yeah, correct. So my question on that is, right now, even in Silicon Valley, right, low code, no code is all the rage. So what is the advantage of this approach that you're taking with Robot Framework?
Yeah, I mean, it's a trend for sure, and I get why. And there's a ton of automation platforms that will be able to fulfill your needs if you need to integrate Salesforce to Google Docs or something like that. But we focus on software robots, and software robots are, I think, something that's fundamentally sort of a basic level concept in any IT automation stack. So these are agents that can perform any task that a human could, or that you could achieve through APIs or database access. So think in terms of agents like that can act on your IT systems. Think in terms of robots, not in terms of tying together APIs and just doing a few data transforms in between. So I think they can really be a complement to each other, low code automation platforms and software robots. That's why we are building an API to Robocloud, and that's actually part of the reason why Robocloud is only on the cloud native, is that you can really integrate into all these existing platforms. When you have an API available to use always, you can still go and reach into your on-prem system. Let's say that you want to integrate your low-code tool to your mainframe. You're free to do that. Kind of, we think also in terms of being the last mile of automation in some ways.
Okay, perfect. So can you integrate with the other low-code platforms like UiPath Automation Anywhere? Is that in your roadmap?
Yeah, I think we could. We haven't been doing that. There hasn't been any demand for that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't see why we couldn't, but yeah, hasn't been too much demand, to be honest.
Okay, all right. So next question from Sanat. He asks, what are the level of technical skills required to implement end-to-end projects using Robocorp?
Yeah, good question. I think you need to have some basic scripting skills, so understand some level of scripting. Doesn't need to be like a master's level or anything like that. We have a ton of tutorials on Robohub. So there's a beginner's course, for instance. We actually have a website that we a wonderful content team built just for that purpose. So we have a website that has a bunch of things to automate, and there's a beginner's course where you can start doing that. Obviously, you'll need access to our developer tools to be able to do that, and those will be available in July. But or then you can request for early access from us. But yeah, you need to have a certain kind of level of being able to think in terms of code, but you don't need to be a programmer. Like I mentioned, it has a low barrier to entry. Some of these examples that we have are extremely compact. There are few lines and some boilerplate code, so they are really easy to get into, and they're well explained.
Next up, Alan asks, will the Visual Code extension also support recording RPA tasks?
Yeah, recording. We haven't been too much thinking about recording. So there are limited use cases to recording, I think, and I'm really not sure what are the best uses for that. So we can certainly do a recorder where you can do like image-based recordings and repeat those. We have the tooling for that, and we do support image-based automation as well. But as we all know, anyone who's been involved in RPA is that usually you don't do that. You don't go about and do like recording-based things and push them to production. Instead, you'll find the kind of the right way to do the implementation. So we haven't built a roadmap for building a kind of a record and playback tool, but there's nothing that will prevent us from doing that. I know that RoboFramework has some Chrome extensions that let you record and play Selenium type of scripts that exists, but you can use them for sure. There's no limitation, but we are not as a company yet at least supporting that.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that goes against, I think, your approach, right? So that makes sense.
In a sense, if there's a valid use case and we don't certainly want to be kind of difficult to approach, and so we have things like UI locator selectors that are coming. So you can click on UIs and get the selectors inserted into your scripts, and that's I think a really good way to benefit semi-recording, but you still want to write the keyword, right click element and then select the element yourself, like pointing at it, but you don't want to be doing like image recognition based recordings and try to work with those too much.
Okay, perfect. So the next question from Oana asks about the RPA being brittle and doesn't capture the changes in the backend. I think probably the front end as well. So how do you solve that brittle bot breaking problem, Andy?
Yeah, that's a good one. Recordings will break. That's something that we know. So we don't do recordings or kind of endorse them. And then when we have the focus and the mindset that we serve software robot developers, we serve people who are professionals and understand what they're doing, and we can talk about best practices like use APIs whenever possible, and what kind of locators you should use on websites and so forth. Then you can get into this kind of best practices way of working where you don't go to solutions that break often. Well, the second thing is that Robo Framework was originally built for test automation. I actually see that test automation is a sub case of RPA. It's a form of RPA, but guess what changes a lot is application that is being developed. So as you have an application that you automate and then you have 10 developers working on it, it's changing every day. So Robo Framework actually facilitates really nicely isolation of functionality into reusable components and separatable components. So you can implement, if you follow the kind of the smart ways of working with Robo Framework, you'll end up isolating functionalities between keywords. And if those functionalities end up changing, your button changes the location, you can just rewrite that keyword and you're all set basically. Yeah, so you have this sort of layer of maintainability in the tools themselves. And I think overall the text-based editing is really suited for maintainable work.
Okay, good. So yeah, I can understand the maintainable part, but how about, do you think RPAs would become intelligent enough that they can detect these changes automatically and self-heal?
Well, you want an RPA to be deterministic, right? So you want to know what it will do. That's one part of it. So you don't want it to guess if something has changed. So that's one part, but I think that's kind of dodging the question. We actually have a project in mind, and we already started this work, but we want to bring in new people as well. So we have this idea of actually recording a lot of UI element images with included sort of labels, and then publish it as an open data set, and we can have different people create classifiers on top of that, so we can have neural network that can say that, okay, I can find the button that says okay on this screen,
okay,
understanding context. So we actually have that kind of project been kind of on the slow boilerplate cooking for a while.
Okay.
And hopefully we can publish it at some point in time as an open data set where other people can benefit from it as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that will be great, because this is one big problem with the the tool itself, and I'm sure many others are also working on this one. So good to know that you are working on it. So we'll go to the next question. Ramraj asks whether the RPA is a tool or a library. Which programming language does it support?
So Robo Framework is built with Python. So anything that you can do with Python, you can integrate with it. It comes with a set of libraries out of the box. So we maintain the RPA framework library, which is a collection of commonly used RPA components. Then there are, I think, like 350 libraries that are built by the community. So Robo Framework has been around for many years. So there's a lot of things that the community has built, and there are things like mainframe automation or SAP automation. These kind of things, they have been built by other people using Robo Framework, and they are roboframework.org lists some of those projects, and then you can go to Python package index and search for Robo Framework. You'll find like 350 or so projects. So yeah, I think that answers that.
Okay. Ritanshu is asking case study for supply chain, but yeah, I'll just try and make it generic. I think you are working with industry, some of the clients, to prove your use cases, right? So can you talk about it a bit?
I mean, they're pretty RPA use cases in terms of separating between supply chain or finance. To me, that doesn't make too much sense. I get where it's coming from, but whenever I get asked about use cases, I refer to things like, okay, Salesforce automation or NetSuite automation or browser or SAP. Those are kind of proper ways to, in my view, to separate between use cases. And then I posted on Medium a few days ago, or when was it, last week, this post about kind of use case categories in RPA. I think I shared it somewhere as well.
Right, I did see that.
Yeah, so I like to think in terms of replacing manual routines is one use case for RPA, but another, this isn't my original idea, by the way, but another I think really fitting use case is replacing dirty hacks with a sustainable solution. So you know that IT organizations have for decades done like dirty hacks to patch their systems or make things work together. So with RPA, you now have a way to actually properly govern those hacks and kind of make them legitimate. And I think that's a valid use case category of its own. If you think about RPA in terms of a ROI-based cost-saving tool, you don't get to implement that stuff. But with our approach, when we want to enable everyone to be able to use software robots to their benefit, you can actually start thinking about, can I actually govern some of these hacks that have been existing for years. And there were many other use cases that are listed on the Medium post as well. But yeah, so my thinking around, let's say, around supply chain or finance use cases, sure, there's a lot of them, and we can collect some of those to our site, but if we are true to our mission and focus to developers, we rather focus on kind of shining light on use cases per technology.
Got it. Okay. And I think there are two perspectives there. One is a technology perspective, which the technologists, developers understand. And then there's a functional perspective, which, a person, let's say CFO or a CEO would understand. So I think this is coming from the other side. But I understand. Yeah. So Hal Anthony is asking, what's your user base so far?
Yeah. So Robo Framework itself has a ton of users. I think the tool itself gets downloaded over 5 million times annually. If you go to roboframework.org, that gets around 45,000, 50,000 monthly visitors. The Slack, RoboFramework Slack community has, I think, close to 8,000 now members registered.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big community. Then the subset of RPA users is definitely smaller than that. But we have really huge waiting lists on our early access program, and I think there's the user base is going to grow fast when we open it up. So we expect existing Robo Framework users to start exploring it. All those people, those tens of thousands of people who are using Robo Framework right now, and then we expect to bring in new people as well who are not familiar with Robo Framework yet.
Okay, perfect. And on that point, what's your model going to be? Would you have some partners with whom you'll be working?
Yeah, I mean that interest from companies who want to partner up with us as doing implementation work. That's okay, and obviously we value them really much, and we want to help them out to build their business. That's what we are here for. We are building tools so other people can build their business on top of that.
Right.
But then it's really not that different to our perspective whether the user, the developer who builds the robot, is working inside a company or at a kind of partner company to us. So in that regard, there isn't too much difference between partners and just any developer out there. We have different pricing tiers coming for partners and enterprises. So that's also kind of admission that we value the partners and we want to enable them to use our tools for the benefit. But other than the kind of the pricing model things, a developer is a developer to us.
Okay. All right. So next question from Murali. I think we covered a bit of it. We can go through that quick. He asks about unattended mode. Can that be done? And is there a controller and scheduler available?
Yeah, unattended mode, absolutely. So you can run those workers unattended. So we provide the right now we have the container runtime environment that you can use. So you can actually run robots in containers on the cloud completely without kind of zero infrastructure on your end. Or then you can also bring in your own virtual machine. So you want to run inside your own corporate network somewhere. You can just have a virtual machine running and have that work as a worker for Robocloud and schedule that work. So that's there and available. And by the way, the worker only needs to have HTTPS port open to the world. So that's all it needs in order to be able to run. So that's really easy to install and drop in place.
Okay, perfect. So the next question from L Bokeh, I hope I'm saying that right, sorry. So L asks about COVID-19 and RPA. So I'll just generalize it. And so what's your thoughts about RPA post-COVID?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think it should pick up. I think there's gonna be more automation, not less. And I think RPA might be one of the more resilient industries for COVID. I don't see too much kind of decrease in demand. Obviously, when we had the crisis initially, there was thinking that as people are going through this experience, they might not have room for starting kind of new projects. So anything that will take up mental capacities is going to be slowing down. But not right now. We see activity picking up, and there's a lot of people coming to our way and starting to use the early access program that we have out. And so I would be optimistic.
Yeah, that's good. And since you're releasing kind of in this new normal, that will be an interesting thing, right? And we'll test your resiliency, if I may say that.
Yeah, exactly. And as a company, we have been working remotely since the beginning, actually. So we have been a remote first company. So we operate in the US and in the EU. So we have developers in multiple countries, and everyone has the opportunity to work remotely. So that has been part of our operation mode since the beginning, and that certainly helped us with COVID.
Great. He has one more question about automation in Africa. Are you seeing any intake from there?
Actually, I am.
Oh, great.
And yeah, so we have some inquiries from Africa as well. South Africa, I think, has been the most active place there. I think there's gonna be opportunities, obviously, there as well. I don't have a ton of insights specifically to our African markets. Other than that, I see that we have kind of incoming interest from all over the world, basically, from North America to South America, and from the EU to like Asia and India is certainly an area that has a ton of interest, and then Africa as well included.
And Middle East too?
Yeah.
Bharat on the call, he asked a few questions earlier. He was asking what are the new capabilities being added. So I think what he means is, probably you're releasing phase 1, and then what's the new things in the works?
Yeah, well, it's a long list of things that we want to add, both on the Robocloud side, so the orchestration side. There's things like being able to manually complete a task that a robot has done, kind of manual intervention type of things. Better APIs, just a vast amount of things, and we have a big team, but still feels that we could use a few more developers. On the developer tool side, there's a lot of initiatives going on. So better Visual Studio Code support is in the pipeline. More features on Robocode Lab. Native support for debugging and these kind of things. What else? On Robohub, we want to be able to bring in user-generated content. We are releasing a forum as well. But I'd like to have a way I'm pretty sure that's coming as well. So way for people to share their own work and kind of highlight some of the things that people have been building, kind of, sharing robots and
Right.
sharing robot code outside of GitHub. So obviously GitHub is something where you can share, but we need to have a place for highlighting that work as well.
Okay. Perfect. I think the last question, and then we'll go in for some live questions. So Jose is asking, when will it be available?
July.
Okay.
Short answer.
All right, perfect. So people on the call, if you have any more questions, you can come off mute and ask a few questions. We have around 5 minutes.
Okay, so Antti, as you said, you can set up the workers. For example, you can run tasks in a cloud, in a container, or you can set up a virtual machine in, for example, in my infrastructure. Am I right?
Yep.
And do I need installed all dependencies like Python robot framework and this kind of dependencies of that machine?
Excellent question. You don't need to install anything.
Okay, it's entered by workers service, yeah?
Yeah. So how it works is that the worker actually handles all of that. So you actually need to just install the worker and run the process there, and it will, for the first time when it runs a certain process, it will create all the dependencies there. Install everything. It takes a while longer to run the first time, and then afterwards it has everything it needs. If you update the process, the next time it's just going to update everything. So you definitely don't need to worry about dependencies. That's a huge value that we are providing.
Great.
Thank you, Patrick. Can I have one more question?
Yes, Patrick.
Okay, so about unattended execution, because I have already tasks run on Jenkins. It's scheduled every 5 minutes and so on. So do you think about something like intelligent process control? For example, sometimes it can happen that the task can run into infinite loop, for example, and you can track this kind of things. Do you know what I mean?
So tracking whether the task gets
stuck in infinite loop, for example, and you want to track some unexpected behavior in your system, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, well, obviously timeout is something that we support already, but that's really not your question. Yeah, good area of exploration. We don't have anything concrete. If you have good ideas, just shoot them over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. If anyone has any question, please identify yourself and then ask the question.
This is Bharat. Do we have any certifications, or is there a plan to have certifications?
Yeah. So that's an area that we've been thinking about. So I'd love there to be able to be a certification examination where you can just take it online and show that you've done that, and maybe have a way to have different levels. There's some people in the open source community that think that that's bogus, but then again, I understand where it's coming from. So if you wanna show that you're actually capable in this area, you need to have something as a proof. So definitely there's going to be a demand for that. We don't want to monetize too much on that side, so it's not going to be something where we want to be trying to make a buck out of it, but something that I think we can as a company provide. We have been thinking about learning paths for individuals. So on Robohub, if you're logged in, you might have a few learning paths, and then you might have a certification of completion of those learning paths to show. That's something that we are thinking kind of open.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else had a question?
Yeah, so I had one. We've got quite a traditional RPA team, but very few of them actually have a coding background. So as we're sort of reskilling them to learn the Robo framework and the RPA framework, are there any tips for sort of facilitating that transition from the low code and no code tools to the Robocorp framework?
Yeah, good question. I think the kind of traditionally the Robo framework community has lacked really high quality learning resources, and that's area of our contribution from Robocorp, where we are actually putting a lot of resources, is creating the material for people to learn. Understanding the basics of scripting is useful in order to understand where you can have situations where you need to be cautious of error handling and so forth. I think the best way is to actually do real world projects and try to learn from others. And we provide these beginners courses exactly for this kind of reason, that you can take an hour and go through the beginner course on Robohub, right? And then see if that's something where you want to start putting more effort into.
Great, thank you.
It would be nice to have partners working who want to actually take on training courses. We'll be looking into training partners as well soon.
Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Antti. One last question before we go. I mean, you've done 2 rounds of funding. That's really awesome. So, what do you see the level of interest for RPA in the Silicon Valley?
I think it's there's huge interest,
Okay.
certainly. So like I mentioned earlier, I think software robots is going to be something that's kind of a fundamental building block in your IT automation stack.
Right.
So, and it will come down from the large enterprises and kind of throughout the whole market. So I think RPA is going to be bigger than it's estimated to be right now. It's going to be more versatile, more widely used. Okay. And so we are part of enabling that, and that kind of that vision and the broadness of the vision is part of the reason why there's so much interest in Robocorp in particular, I think. But overall, I think there's really fundamentally not keeping RPA from being sort of disrupted by this kind of open source and license free model. So I think that's something that's bound to happen, and we just happen to be one of the companies making that possible. So I'm happy that there's so much interest in the Silicon Valley, because otherwise we couldn't. There's a big industry that's holding it back right now. Well, obviously they're doing a lot of good things as well, but as we see that we need to make a big industry change, and it's going to need some resources to be able to pull it off.
Yep. Thank you, Antti. I think that's a good note to end. Thank you for doing this, Antti. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Bot Nirvana podcast. Appreciate your time as always. Catch the show notes on botnirvana.org. While you're there, feel free to explore more automation ideas, tutorials, and tools and more. See you next time.